What's up, Rebel Nation? It's Cam Wicker from the Rebel Walk, co-host of the podcast that you're tuned into right now, The Rebel Talk. In this week's episode, Zach and I break down every Ole Miss player they'll be drafting in this week's upcoming draft on April 24th through the 26th. We break down the player, the best fit, and the rounds that we projected they'll be drafted in. We will get back to you guys with some baseball podcasts and another draft podcast after these teams reach into OTAs for the NFL. With that being said, enjoy the show.
Welcome back, Rebel fans. You're listening to another episode of the Rebel Talk presented by the Rebel Walk. I'm Cam Wicker, and as always, I'm here with Zach Mareth. Today, we're here to talk a little bit of NFL draft talk for the Ole Miss guys getting drafted in this coming up draft. We're going to talk mainly NFL Combine guys, just because those are probably the guys that are going to get picked up throughout the draft on the 24th through the 26th this coming up week. Won't talk too much about some other guys, just some other guys. I'll throw some names out there like Trey Washington, Caden Priest, Corn, John Sanders Jr. Maybe a couple of those O-linemen on the front end for Ole Miss last year. Won't talk too much about those guys today, but we'll talk again about some draft guys when OTAs. We just talked about this before getting on the pod. We'll talk a little bit when OTAs get started and we're able to see some of these guys that didn't get drafted and got picked up because, Trey Washington's a heck of a player. Some of those guys, heck of players, they'll get a chance even if they don't get drafted. You see guys like that get picked up all the time. But it's going to be a record-setting year probably for Ole Miss as far as players drafted. It might be a record-setting year in first-round draft picks as well. Ole Miss had 3 back in 2016 with Treadwell, Robert Nkemdiche, and Laramie Tunsil. Could be 3, tying that. Could be less than that. Could be more than that. We'll have to see. And we'll go through all that today, give you guys some player comps, give you guys some overall view of these players before going into the draft. It's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend here in Oxford. Baseball coming up. Sorry we didn't get you guys a baseball pod. I know Dalen and Zach got you guys a spring football pod in. We'll get a baseball pod after this big weekend series against Vandy. Lost a little bit of my voice last night, Zach, at the Governor's Cup down in Cal. Ole Miss walked that one off, so I apologize for the little voice cracks here on occasion during this pod. But just starting right off the bat, Zach, first-round lock, no doubt, for Ole Miss this year is Walter Nolan. Just your thoughts on his draft grade, where you think his best fit is, and his overall just draft prospect.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I really hope we don't have a gas mask situation here with the amount of first-round guys who are available. Because like you said, Cam, it's probably the first time in a long time since that Tunsil class that this is even a possibility. But you mentioned it, bro. Walter Nolan, absolute monster. We know it. The dude's a freak. He's 305 pounds. He moves like he's a 250-pound like high school edge rusher. He just bullies people. But again, I do see him. I kind of got a crazy take here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals took him at 19, Cam. And if that's not the case, I think the Eagles have shown us time and time again they really like interior SEC defenders who come from really, really good coaching staffs. In between Lou Spanos, obviously Lane Kiffin overseeing everything, and then Pete Golding on the defensive side. There's no question that Walter Nolan has definitely interviewed well. He's probably proven a team like the Eagles, hey, there's no reason not pick another dominant SEC guy in the middle. Another thing, just piggybacking off the Bengals, they took Mims. I can't remember his first name, but he's an offensive lineman from Georgia last year, and the fan base was pretty surprised. So typically, showing that they're going to pick a man up front, that gives me a little more reason to believe that, hey, maybe they'll go pick up a guy who they can stick and start right away because they need size. They need a dominant guy in the middle. And Walter Nolan can absolutely be that guy. But Bengals or Eagles I'm opting with, definitely don't care as long as he gets selected in the first round, though, Cam.
No doubt. I have Bengals in all caps for Walter Nolan. This is a Cincinnati team that has been begging for defensive linemen for years, along with the offensive lineman to block for Joe Burrow. But defensive line is really where they need to fix that team down up there in Cincinnati. Trey Hendrickson's kind of don't know what's happening there with him. So you kind of want someone like Nolan, who's a locked first-round pick. Like you said, seems like he interviewed great. This is a guy that came into Ole Miss and you weren't sure. You heard some things. You heard hearsay that maybe he had some character problems, but he got to Ole Miss, nothing. Quiet all year long, stuck to it, head down, and he balled out at Ole Miss. Now he's a first-round draft pick here coming up in the next couple of days. Like I said, I had the Bengals highlighted right there as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you see someone like the Eagles as well, maybe the Bills, just a contending team that really wants to add another elite piece, young piece to their defensive line, I could see Walter going later in that first round. And I could see him even going high as 15, 16 around there, Texans, Falcons, somewhere around there in the middle, depending on if someone wants to take a chance and build around Walter on that interior defensive line. For a pro comp where I got as Walter, love this player, love his personality, Christian Wilkins. I feel like Walter Nolan as a whole kind of just reminds me of him, the way he plays, the way he acts on the press conferences. Christian Wilkins. And these are my player comps, guys. I'm sorry if if it seems like I may have stole someone off the internet, but I didn't. These are all just up and kind of just going off what I see. But Christian Wilkins, very disruptive, energetic player, consistent on a daily basis. Walter, you watch the film, he's consistent game by game, disruptive. And you watch the press conferences, man. Christian Wilkins, a personality. Walter Nolan, he said it in a press conference not so long ago. He's just a big kid out there playing football. So I really like Christian Wilkins comp for Walter Nolan, and I could definitely see Walter going mid to late first round here coming up on Thursday. Moving into Trey Amos, probably going to be a first-round pick, early second-round pick, Zach. Your overall draft grade on him, and what do you got best fit-wise for him?
Yeah, super high on Amos. I think he did a really nice job at the NFL Combine going and running a relatively quick 40 time that surprised me. I didn't know bro had wheels like that. So respect to him. I see him going here either to the Packers or the Cowboys, two teams who, you would want to go look in their divisions. The Packers are going against DJ Moore on the Bears, Justin Jefferson and the Vikings, Amon-Ra St. Brown on the Lions, Jameson Williams on the Lions. I mean, the list keeps going. You need a guy who has the ability to probably lock up, a wide receiver 2 or 3 in his first year, and then develop into that lockdown guy who can eventually be something really special. And then with the Cowboys, wouldn't this be interesting, guys? We see Trey Amos facing off against A.J. Brown against the Eagles twice a year. Devontae Smith, obviously, on that squad. Terry McLaurin on the Commanders. So 2 divisions that are heavy in skill wide receivers. I wouldn't be surprised if Amos was picked and utilized very efficiently in his first year. He's developed. He's played at Alabama, played with Saban, played with Pete Golding, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Dude's got experience. He's a vet. Very quiet off the field, quiet personality, but an absolute dog nonetheless. So excited for Trey. I think he's a dude who we'll see make some plays this fall when the season kicks off.
No doubt. I think Trey has high upsides, and coming into the year, he was cornerback 1 for Ole Miss, but I want to say early on, no one really just thought right away Trey Amos was a first-round pick. And as the year went on, you saw him go up against SEC talent and pretty much lock down a lot of really elite guys in the SEC. And you see the links there, and then he goes to the combine. You see how quick he is. This guy's going to be a steal probably late in the first round, early in the second. Like you said, Zach, I got him Green Bay. That's a good fit there. Just somewhere where he could be a cornerback 2 or 3 right away, and he can learn underneath a vet, underneath the solid defense. Another heart pick for me, I got New Orleans in the second round. New Orleans is in desperate need of some defensive backs. We do have number 1 guy in Alontae Taylor, but New Orleans is in desperate need of some solid DBs, and I think Trey Amos will fit right in there in New Orleans. As far as my player comps for Amos, I got James Bradbury over there on the Eagles, good zone press corner, physical. Amos is always physical on the line at Ole Miss this past year. And then got Greedy Williams, long player, really fast at LSU, some good ball skills. Don't see as good as ball skills as Greedy Williams had from Amos. You'd like to see him develop that a little bit more over the years. But very long, lengthy corner, very aggressive, very good in zone and press. I think Amos has got pretty high upside. The ceiling is no doubt going to be really high for Amos, no matter where he goes to. Just hoping that he'll get that right fit. And like I said, New Orleans, if you're on the board, second round, Trey Amos, if he's there, you got to steal in the second round, New Orleans. I think New Orleans is going like 35, somewhere around there in the second round.
Okay.
Take Trey Amos if he's there, man. Or Trey Harris. We'll get to Trey Harris here soon, too. And that brings us into our next guy, though, Zach. And this is the guy that's kind of just been all over the place, Jackson Dart. I mean, no telling where this guy's going to go. It could be Thursday. It could be Friday. I mean, who knows? I mean, with the way these quarterbacks fall in the draft sometimes, from behind the scenes you don't know about, some of these guys can fall to day 3. I mean, I seen the other day people talking about Shadur on social media, no telling what guys are actually saying that's true about him and what's not true about him. Jackson's anywhere from like 3rd round to 1st round right now. Just your thoughts on Jackson. I think he's a 1st rounder.
Well, you mentioned the social media thing, and I'm scrolling on my phone earlier, Cam, and I see a report. I don't know. It's like one of those weird, like NFL kind of affiliated Twitter accounts. And it was like someone from the front office of an NFL staff said they hate Shadur. He's selfish, this and that. I'm like, where are you getting this information? Like, I don't know. I'm not buying it. But I definitely think the Shadur Jackson Dart conversation is one that's going to be had. I do think Shadur does get drafted over him eventually. It's a lot of poise coming, a lot of entertainment with that last name, if you will. But Shadur, I'll give him his props. Good player. Probably didn't deserve to get his number retired, but that's a conversation for another time. Jackson Dart, look, Mr. Aura, the guy who can do it all. Even in the offseason, he's firing me up. I just watched a highlight video earlier today, and I want him to come back all right. I'm like, dude, just this guy's presence, it's awesome. I think wholeheartedly he's either going to the Giants or the Browns early in those second round spots. I hope to God that Jackson Dart gets selected in the first. And I have a hot take here. If he does get selected in the first, I think it's going to be the New Orleans Saints, Cam. How does that sound? So I don't really know where the story leads with Dart. I think first and foremost, it's interesting, the whole saga that he's in Green Bay today, but he's going to Utah for the draft. Like, there's a lot of just interesting things going on. And until that draft starts tomorrow night at 7 p.m., I don't know what the answer is. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be glued to the TV. I know that's a hot take because I think the Saints have like the 9th pick. So I think it could happen, though. You look at what's happening with Derek Carr. The dude's injured. He shouldn't be your guy. You could probably speak from experience as a fan, Cam. Derek Carr should never be your guy going into the season. No disrespect. So, look, whether the Saints maybe take Shadur or Dart, maybe they shock the world. I don't know, but that's where I'm at with Jackson, Cam.
Absolutely. And going back to Dart in Green Bay, I noticed that too. And we asked Dart at Pro Day if he's going to be in Green Bay. He says yes. Report comes out a couple weeks ago. He's not doing that anymore. He's going back to Utah. And he's in Green Bay yesterday. I think maybe it had to do maybe with some media stuff. He was going to probably take some videos for the draft and stuff like that. The graphics they put on the board.
He's explaining his Star Wars story again.
Yeah, explaining his stories and everything for the draft. Even though it should be an hour-long show, they're going to draw it out for 4 hours, guys. We know that's going to happen. So, but Jackson Dart, yes, I think Saints could shock the world. Take Jackson Dart at 9. Like Zach said, I'm a Saints fan. Derek Carr's not the guy. Derek Carr's not the guy. Spencer Rattler's not the guy either, and Spencer Rattler's right behind him. So Saints need someone there. Whether you get them in the second round, whether you give them the first round, Saints do need someone there. If the Saints get desperate, get antsy, I could very well see them taking Jackson in the first round. I can see them taking Shadur in the first round if he's there at 9. I think Jackson's got some pretty high upside. I think he's got a pretty low floor too. I mean, just talking the other day when we were conversating on messages showing about the Colin Cowherd comments saying this is Zach Wilson written all over it. It could be Zach Wilson written all over it, but who knows? I mean, this is a guy that's probably not going to get thrown into the fire right away in Jackson Dart. You don't want to end up in a situation like that if you're Jackson Dart. I don't think if you're the Browns, even if you got Kenny Pickett, you got someone else you can throw out there for a little while until Jackson is certainly ready. And that's why my player comp for Jackson is Sam Darnold. I said Sam Darnold with a little bit more of a running game, maybe even Ryan Tannehill on the Titans there for a little while. I think Jackson Dart is going to be that type of player in the NFL eventually if he gets the chance. I said best fit, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Rams, because he can go sit behind someone that's been in the league for a little while. Pittsburgh does have Mason Rudolph there. I mean, he can sit behind Rudolph. That is a bet, but they're going to need him to start eventually if he's in Pittsburgh. And then Pittsburgh just seems, no matter who they have at quarterback, they seem to always win games. And I think that's a good spot for Dart to be. He's got that winning culture. He brings that to the team. It's all he did for Ole Miss the past couple of years. And then the Rams, Matthew Stafford's on the end of that trail. So they're going to need someone to take over there. They still got a really good offense. They got a really good mind. And Sean McVay over there. I think Dart, no matter where he ends up, you're going to get the same type of player you got at Ole Miss. He's got a lot of heart. He's got a lot of ambition to win football games. And I think that's what he's going to do in the NFL when he's given the chance. I don't think best situation for him probably isn't the Giants, Browns, or Raiders, but that's likely probably where he might fall just because those are the teams that are really desperate need of a quarterback. Also New Orleans as well. But Dart definitely will be drafted probably on Thursday. If not, it will be within those first 5 picks on Friday, no doubt.
I am so fired up. And I mean, wouldn't it be funny, Cam, if he gets taken by one of these, no disrespect, just horrible organizations, and he pulls an Eli? He's like, nope, sorry, trade me, I'm out.
No.
So that's why part of me I'd be okay with him going in that second round to a team like the Rams with Sean McVay, just a hell of an organization. You know, they're competing in the playoffs like every single year. That would be ideal, but yeah, man, Giants, Browns, Jets, Steelers, Saints, those are the immediate teams that come to mind for me. I want to move in. You mentioned him earlier, Cam. Let's talk about Trey Harris a little bit. Unfortunately, he might end up with the Titans, which they're not in a good spot right now. But if he's there with Cam Ward and they're kind of developing at the same time, I think, that could end up playing out. But where I really want to see Trey go, you mentioned the Saints, but I'd love to see him in New England with the Patriots. Vrabel's taken over there. He's an incredible coach, great track record. Look, I think he could be a sneaky wide receiver too, granted that he stays healthy. That's kind of been the Achilles heel of Trey Harris for his entire career. He when he plays, he's dominant. You really can't guard him. I don't really think there was an SEC defender who actually locked him down, but look, like he barely played any games this past year. So got to keep Trey healthy. Hopefully he really starts to focus on taking care of himself. And I would love to see him in New England, especially for a chance to become a true competitor there. This isn't a comparison by any means, but I do think he has the ceiling that Brian Thomas had his rookie year to go somewhere and change the culture and change the entire offense, really. Throw it to him down the field, throw it to him over the middle, give him a screen route. The dude gets yards after the catch. Has great separation, and he's fast enough to, beat a defender down the sideline. So very high on Trey Harris. I'd love to see him go in the second round there to the Pats.
Absolutely. I think Pats is a good fit. I didn't really think about that one. Drake May there with him. Drake May's kind of developing that offense, showing some promise there in New England. But Trey Harris is a very difficult pick for me. It seems like he can be a wide receiver one, but the injury thing, he's been injured for a handful of games in 2 years at Ole Miss. And that's probably something that these GMs and coaches are weighing in a lot when they're taking this into account. Now, on the bright side, Trey Harris, if you haven't watched interviews of him or anything, he's a great individual. I'm sure he had great interviews, and he's a guy that wants to win. So I think someone, maybe probably even a competitor that wants to win is going to take a chance on him. I have seen the Titans attached to a lot of him in those mock drafts. For me, I think best fit for him, Buffalo Bills. They need a receiver. Yeah. They need someone that is lengthy like him. They got Keon Coleman. If you got Trey Harris on the other side, that's two young receivers with length.
Like almost carbon copies right there.
Almost carbon copies of each other there. And then the 49ers as well. 49ers just lost Deebo Samuel. I mean, Braden Ayuk is – no telling what's happening with him. I mean, he's always wants more money, doesn't want more money. Who knows what's going to happen there. So 49ers could use somebody there as well with Brock Purdy. And then the Giants also could use someone beside Malik Neighbors. They still need to figure out that quarterback position. Russell Wilson's definitely not their guy. So they're still going to have to figure out some stuff there. But player comp for Harris, I got an early second round pick, probably later in the second round. Who knows? Maybe he'll slip under some radar like DK and AJ did that year, and just people pass on him. And you saw what happened. Worked out for DK and AJ Brown. So player comp for Trey Harris, I got Michael Pittman Jr. Probably that's like a ceiling pick for him. And then I got Allen Lazard. I could see Allen Lazard really as that player that Trey Harris will be once he's in the league. Jump ball guy, someone that you can rely on to just snatch the ball away from people in the end zone. And that's kind of how Ole Miss used him at times there in Oxford with Jackson Dart. I mean, I know he was the primary guy, but if you can use him in the red zone, that's where he's really effective. He's a great jump ball guy, very physical. I mean, and he's faster than most people thought. Most people thought that Trey Harris was going to go out there, run a 4.6, but I think Trey Harris is faster than most people think. So really high on Trey Harris. Always been high on since he got here. I think he's probably going to be one of the steals in this draft alongside with Amos for Ole Miss. Moving into the next guy, this is another guy that's got kind of some interesting range here on where he could be picked. Princely Umamielen, stud coming into the year last year for Ole Miss, stud throughout the entire season for Ole Miss. Was going to be a first-round pick in most of the mock drafts leading up to the Combine, and then the Combine comes, and all of a sudden they freak out because he can't run a cone drill. So, I mean, I think that's why Princely fell a little bit. He's probably going to be could sneak into that first round, probably early second round pick to mid second round pick. But I got best fit for him. Bengals, obviously, we said earlier, they're in desperate need from defensive line. I got Ravens just because he can learn behind some veterans presence there, and the Lions learning behind a really good defense as well there. What are your just overall initial thoughts on a prospect grade for Umam Yellen?
Yeah, I think the cone drill thing is interesting because at some point, if I'm a GM, it's like, dude, go look at the tape. The past 2 years, he's an all SEC second team guy at Florida. Then he comes to Ole Miss and he's on some of the All American lists, dude. Like this is a top tier guy. The cone drill, I mean, come on. So I do like the Ravens. I'm glad you mentioned them because, okay, first and foremost, Tavius Robinson, former Ole Miss guy, but Ravens, Eagles, Chiefs for me. I want him to go on a competitive team with really experienced defensive linemen on it. And I think he can also have this Trey Amos type impact in those defenses. Like, look, man, it's late in the game. Our guys are tired and it's third down. We need pressure on the quarterback, period. The game that comes to mind is Georgia when just dominating those Georgia O linemen. You look at the moves he's doing. He's spinning, he's swim moving, he's doing it all. And his length and speed and athleticism allows him to do that. There's no cone drill when the whistle is blown and the ball snapped. That's all I have on Princey. I think he's going to be a second-round pick, but really, would not mind seeing him go to a competitor and ultimately making that third down defense something special. Also like the Bengals there, Cam. That would be, again, they need – Cincinnati needs guys, period. So
absolutely.
Happy for Princely. Definitely keep your eyes peeled in that second round.
Absolutely. And just like Zach said, you can turn on the tape for Princely. The cone drill really doesn't matter. You can turn on that Georgia tape for this entire Ole Miss defensive line last year and really take away a lot from there, which brings me into the next guy, J.J. Pegues. This is one of probably the hardest guys to kind of evaluate in this draft because who knows what side of the ball he's going to be playing when he reaches the NFL. I mean, is he going to play majority offense? Is he going to play majority defense? I think he'll find his home on defense depending on where he lands. But it seems like depending on also where he lands, he can work into some offense. I got Poona Ford as his player comp Zach. Seahawks, Bills, former guy there. He's a free agent now, I believe. Poona Ford had a 5'11" build, 310, kind of a smaller defensive interior lineman like JJ. And me and Zach have seen this. I mean, JJ was listed at like 320, 330 at Ole Miss last year. It seems like he's gotten in much better shape since the combine and since all the pro day stuff. So really happy to see where JJ is going to go. This is a Ole Miss legend in my book, the mayor of Oxford. I said best places for him to go. I'm thinking offensive-minded teams that would love to use a big guy up front in a package. Lions, Dolphins, Packers, Chiefs. I think those are some really good spots for him. I think third to fourth round is a good spot for JJ. I mean, who knows? This is a really athletic guy. Someone could take a chance in the second round. But I think third, fourth, maybe even fifth round is a good, safe spot to say for JJ, Zach.
Yeah, I got JJ the third through fifth slot. I think he'll definitely go, in those later days of the draft. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I've seen he's met with the Steelers and Raiders. I think regardless where he goes, it's a guy who is going to take some time to develop and really figure out where you want to put him. I think to make it kind of an insane comparison is similar to what Chris Jones does. He can play, the interior defensive line. Then the next snap, he can be edge rushing and actually kind of beat a defender. He's quick. He played tight end at Auburn to start his college career. The dude is an athletic freak. Real quick, I think he played ball at Oxford High School, but can you imagine trying to tackle him?
Insane. I'm pretty sure he was like the option, just wildcat quarterback at Oxford High School. I think they just snapped the ball to him and let him do his thing.
It's not even fair, dude. So use him in that offensive package, use him on the defense. I'm really just kind of eager to see where he's utilized in the NFL, but definitely I think that third, fourth, or fifth slot him.
Absolutely. Really happy to see where JJ can go. Proud to see JJ be a pro football player. I mean, I remember when Auburn took JJ away from Ole Miss a couple years ago. Ole Miss fans were in shambles. JJ returns. He's the hometown hero. He's the mayor of Oxford. JJ wears the Chucky Mullins. It all worked out how it was supposed to with JJ Pegues for sure. Moving into Chris Paul. Another interesting one here. I think this is a lot of upside on this guy. Kind of bursted onto the scene for Ole Miss. I mean, solid linebacker coming into Ole Miss. You knew what you were going to get with him, but you didn't realize the level of intensity that you were going to get from this guy. I mean, he's just an intense player, loves to seek the football. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't even wear gloves when he's playing linebacker out there. He's barehanded out there. He probably could have caught some more picks last year if he wore some gloves. But if you're listening, Pooh Paul, maybe wear some gloves in the NFL because those guys are throwing a little bit harder out there. But for Pooh, I got third, fourth round pick right here. Maybe even slipping, like I said, with JJ into that second round. I mean, this is a guy that's probably one of the best inside linebackers in the draft. Inside linebackers don't have very high draft value, seems like nowadays, because there's so many hybrid linebacker positions. But, I mean, if Pooh wants to be an every down linebacker, he's probably going to need to gain a little bit more weight. Not saying that he couldn't do it at the weight he's at now. I mean, we saw he did it in the SEC every year. But my comp for him, because of that weight, Logan Wilson, former Bengals guy there, and then Matt Milano for the Bills. Both smaller, undersized linebackers, but both really athletic and underrated and really seek the football. I think Pooh-Paw's got some high upside if he lands at the right spot. I got 49ers and Colts just because he can go learn under that 49er linebacker system and that Colts linebacker system, who seem to pump out really good middle tier draft picks at linebacker.
Absolutely. You know, he met with the Niners. Look, that to me, that's the destination. Cam just talked about it, but you know, you want to go somewhere to develop under some heavy leadership presence, and that Niners defense is full of them. The Bills fans on Twitter are also, they're really high on Pooh. I feel like I've been checking my phone recently, and they want to take him with that 61st pick. I think it's either 61 or 62, but it's late in that second round. So it wouldn't be surprised if he went there. Obviously, naturally, you think he goes in the third or fourth, but people got to remember, man, Pooh is just a different animal when that ball is snapped. I mean, you go back to last fall, they gave the microphone system to TJ Daugherty because TJ was, I mean, I'm sure there are other reasons, but one of them was that it seemed like TJ was outperforming Pooh during fall camp. And then after that first game, it was like, oh my gosh, like there's an absolute beast, and that's number 11 in Chris Pooh-Paul. So I think he's going to have a similar, you know, like Logan Wilson's the perfect comparison, kind of an undersized guy, but he's going to make a lot of tackles. He's very quick to the ball, and hell, throw some gloves on him. Maybe he'll have a couple interceptions too.
Absolutely. And I mean, another comp for him as well, Darius Leonard. I mean, Colts guy, not really high drafted. He might have went undrafted. I don't know exactly where Leonard went in that draft. I can't remember. But Leonard turned out really good for the Colts. I think Pooh could be that type of player where he kind of slips under the radar a little bit. Team doesn't take a chance on him. And someone like 49ers Colts takes a chance on this guy and develops him. I think that's the case for a lot of these Ole Miss guys, especially the ones we've already named off here. Moving into the later round of these NFL draft guys for Ole Miss, Jordan Watkins, very interesting one here as well. Really blazing speed at the combine with that 40. I mean, you saw it at Ole Miss last year. He set a record against Arkansas. This is a guy who's I feel like he's kind of, you know, a glue guy, someone that keeps that wide receiver room together. Seems like he's got a lot of personality. Great middle of the field, mid route kind of receiver that you just kind of get the ball to in space and let him run, find some open space. I got Darnell Mooney as his player comp, and I got 5 to 7 rounds, maybe even 6 to 7 rounds for Watkins. I mean, receiver classes, especially this year, sometimes they're really stacked. This year it's really stacked as well. I think Watkins probably sneaks into those later rounds just because of his speed, and he's a special teams guy that's proven he can be a punt returner. I think Watkins is going to make an NFL roster, no doubt, and will be on an NFL roster next year. I think best case scenario, I mean, Pats, Bills, Saints, anyone that needs a receiver, some receiver depth, Giants, anyone like that, take Jordan Watkins late in those 6, 7, 5 rounds.
Yeah, I like it, man. And I have on my notes here, look, this is a guy who has a chance to become a starting punt returner or kick returner in his first or second year in the league. He was really consistent. I think it was injuries hindered his ability. That's why Micah Davis was brought in. Same guy who's also used to play running back, but we're not going to get there. But yeah, Watkins, look, ran a 4.37 at 40 time at the NFL Combine. And I think that took him, I know it sounds crazy, but I really do believe that took him from, you know, maybe a 6th or 7th last round guy to that 5th, maybe 4th round. I think it bumped him up a little bit. The game that comes to mind is Arkansas. What do you have, like 500 yards of receiving?
Yeah.
Like every Ole Miss record that day. It wasn't even fair. Him and Jackson were like playing a video game over there in Fayetteville. But look, I think my comparison's obviously a little ridiculous here, but the 49ers look like a team who have proven they utilize their receivers in really unique ways, like they did with Debo. And to me, Watkins can be that guy. You know, you can put him in the backfield a couple plays, get him a screen pass, and then, like, you know, we touched on his ability to just create open space and get the ball in the middle of the field is just incredible. I know the Steelers interviewed him, but yeah, definitely a team who needs a wide receiver or maybe some help on special teams is definitely going to benefit from drafting Jordan Watkins.
Absolutely. And we heard it many times throughout the year when you Jordan Watkins would go down or you having Jackson Dart talk about him at all. Jackson Dart always said it's like having another quarterback on the field with Jordan Watkins. And I think that's probably helped him a lot in his interviews. Like you said, could shoot up there in the 4th round. Jordan Watkins is probably going to be a steal as well later in these rounds, especially if he can develop under some other receivers. And, I mean, you know how receivers in the NFL goes. I mean, it seems like everyone's hurt. I mean, you play fantasy football, you know how it goes. Your guys are hurt every week. Jordan Watkins could be one of those guys that just
He's a waiver guy.
He's a waiver guy. Moving into the next couple guys, we got 2 more left for you guys. We'll start off with Juice Wells. I got later to the 6th and 7th round, maybe even undrafted, but I do believe Juice Wells will make a roster solely based on the South Carolina stats, the James Madison stats. I mean, he put up crazy stats before coming to Ole Miss. I mean, wasn't just terrible at Ole Miss. It seemed like the hands kind of came down a little bit. Wasn't as good when you kind of needed him to be, especially in big moments later in the year. But it seems like Antoine's going to be a Kendrick Bourne, Traquan Smith type of guy that's just hangs around a roster and gets his chance. Reliable, well-rounded, doesn't do anything great, but does everything really good. I mean, you kind of wanted Juice to run a faster 40, but he didn't. That probably would have helped his draft stock a little bit there. But I do think the film from South Carolina, the film from James Madison, will get Juice Wells on a roster, no doubt.
And similar to Juice Wells, I kind of have him and Ulysses Bentley grouped in the same category here. Guys who dominated at their previous school, but couldn't quite get it done at Ole Miss. I still think being coached by Lane Kiffin and playing in the SEC is going to boost their overall draft stock for me. But those are, 5, 6, 7 round guys, absolutely, who you're going to see battling for a roster spot. Similar to what happened, I know Dayton Wade didn't get drafted last year, but they'll be bouncing around. You'll probably see some highlights coming out of summer camp here, maybe wearing a whole bunch of different jerseys and over OTAs, just signing new deals. But obviously, I wish nothing but the best for these guys to try and get themselves into, potential starting NFL rotation. One of the last guy, I don't know if we touched on him, Cam, Jared Ivey.
Jared Ivey, yes. Skip Jared Ivey. We'll go back to that because I do got some notes on Jared Ivey. Absolute dog, 3 to 5th round. I mean, this is a guy who's probably gonna need someone that needs that's a high profile on the other end. I got Browns, Steelers, Eagles, Chargers, Niners, someone that's high profile on the other end of the line, kind of like you had at Ole Miss this past year, that takes some pressure off Jared. I mean, this is a very lengthy guy that swats a lot of passes down to the line of scrimmage. I got Carl Granderson as his pro player comp. I think this is a really good player that's in those middle rounds for Ole Miss. And I mean, I don't know how we missed him right there, but this is a guy who's definitely going to get drafted. And Jared Ivey, sorry if Jared or Mama Ivy is watching this. We didn't forget about you. We got you in there, but I do believe Jared Ivey is definitely going to be drafted. Probably Friday, Saturday, no doubt. I think as high as 3rd round, 4th round, maybe slips into that 5th round. But I think Jared's got some really high upside, especially with the length and the size that he has on that defensive line.
Jared Ivey is a freak athlete. I want to say he played high school basketball in high school, but like I've seen him do crazy dunks. The dude he's just athletic, dude. When you have a guy like that who's proven himself in the SEC for several years, he's going to go in the NFL and be effective. I think he has a long-term career in his future as well, because he's another guy similar to Pegues, but more length, very light on his feet, and he can play that edge spot. He can drop into coverage need be. And then, to top it all off, you can throw him in the middle in that defensive tackle role. He did it against Georgia. Is very good against the run. And then on 3rd downs, he can go and, get you a sack or force a fumble or get a thick 6. Shout out to those. Remember that Tulane game a couple of years ago on that fumble recovery for a touchdown. So Jared's versatile. Glad we touched on him, but I've seen him meet with the Bears, obviously being from Chicago. Love to see a guy like Jared Ivey playing for the hometown. The Bills and Chiefs as well. I want to see him get on an experienced line where he can play with guys who can help him develop, give him advice, and then eventually turn him into an everyday starter. I think his ceiling is one of the highest out of every Ole Miss Rebel in this NFL draft here.
Absolutely. I think that's all we got for the draft guys. There, like I said, there's some other guys that'll probably be bouncing around in this next podcast that we talk about after the draft. Maybe it's Caden Prescorn, Trey Washington, John Sanders Jr., some guys like that, Isaiah Hamilton, that will bounce around probably to some OTA teams. Maybe even Trey Washington, I think, and Caden Prescorn could be some guys that get drafted. Maybe that 7th round, maybe late in that 7th round there, that teams are just trying to fill out the roster. But fill out their picks, give a guy a chance. I think the NFL draft starts Thursday, April 24th, 7 p.m., Zach, right, Central Time?
I believe so.
That's first round. Second round and third round will be on Friday on the 25th, 26th on Sunday. That's not all for Ole Miss this weekend, though. We got Vandy here on Friday at 6:30, and then on, I think, 5 o'clock on Saturday, 1 p.m. on Sunday. Double-decker in Oxford this weekend. It's going to be a very busy weekend in Oxford. I'm sure there's some Ole Miss players, probably JJ McGee's probably somewhere in Oxford doing a draft party, so we'll probably see him on the TV screen this weekend for Ole Miss. But it's going to be a pretty big weekend for Ole Miss sports, especially for these NFL draft guys that are getting a heck of a chance to pursue their dreams and take that next step into the NFL. I think that's all we got for you guys today, though. We'll get back to you guys, like I said, after the draft when OTAs kicks off, and we'll talk about more of these guys. We'll get back to you guys with a baseball recap, weekly sports recap later this week at the end of the week. But that's all we got today. Make sure to subscribe to rebelwalk.com for keeping up with these podcasts, Rebel Walk Podcast. Like and comment on this video. Follow Rebel Walk on social media. Follow me and Zach on social media. Make sure to tune into the rebelwalk.com for all your Ole Miss sports needs.